So we left chapter 9 with Bixer shrieking, "No way, I'm not training with him." How does it go? Chapter 10. The Sunfire's onboard lights created a circle of days and nights, marking the passage of time. It was 3 whole days before Lucky's first session with Bixer. He spent every one of those days dreading it. In the meantime, he found his way around. The ship was compact, and he was surprised to discover he'd already met the whole crew. It was a strange group, 2 aliens, 2 young, and no one in between. Lucky wondered how they'd come to crew together. Perhaps they were a family. Frolix and Bixer certainly quarrelled like brother and sister, yet Mystica and Nox seemed too old to be their parents. It was puzzling, but he didn't feel he could ask about it. After his discussion with the captain, he kept his distance from them. He knew he needed them, but he still feared them, even Frolix and Mystica, who seemed to want to help him. He couldn't even afford to make them angry or get anything wrong. He couldn't imagine what they might do to him then, especially Bixer and Captain Nox. So he did his best to keep his end of the bargain. He spent hours down in the hold cleaning the ship's toilet, though he was dismayed to learn that cleaning toilets in space was just as disgusting as cleaning toilets anywhere else. He polished floors and vid screens, though it was frustrating when he knew the ship itself could do the job far better. He helped Frolix keep the dark matter drive clean, although his occasional glimpses of the cockpit only made him wish he could help fly the ship instead. His body slowly healed itself. His knees hurt less every day, but he never stopped feeling those waves of sickness or that burning hole inside him. Sometimes he felt overwhelmed with guilt that he was still alive while his mother was not, that she'd sacrificed herself for something as worthless as his survival. Sometimes he felt furious at her for landing him on this alien ship and leaving him with so little explained. Most of the time, though, he missed her horribly. It was so lonely without her. Mealtimes were the worst. If she'd been with him, they would surely have eaten together. Instead, he ate alone. While the aliens had their own food, Mystica prepared what she called human food for him. It had no flavour and smelled synthetic, but he was grateful she'd made the effort and ate up dutifully. He slept alone too, on one of the hammocks in the main cabin. Fortunately, he didn't wake up naked again, surrounded by smoke and ashes. He shuddered when he thought about those things. He just couldn't make sense of them. He placed his faith in his father. He would be one of the ones to explain it all. So Lucky did his best not to think about Captain Nox's warnings of things beyond the wall. All he knew was that he had to get there, whatever it took. And so time passed as they travelled through the stars, voyaging out of the Aries system through Taurus and past the twin suns of Gemini. He was hoping Bixer had forgotten about training, and she shook him awake one morning. "Boy," she said, "come with me, it's time." She strode off through the cloistered corridors. He staggered and stumbled after her. He couldn't get used to walking on the curved floors. He was relieved when at last they reached a door, until he saw what was written on it. At the top of the door, in big, cheerful letters, it said, "Bixer's quarters." Below, clearly added later, was the instruction, "Keep out." And finally at the bottom, in livid black capitals, "This means you." Lucky hesitated before this door, but Bixer flung it open, went in, and immediately touched the wall screen. It filled with vid pics of an actor singer, an intense-looking woman dressed in black, with curtains of long black, dark hair hanging over her face. She was rocking back and forth as she sang, her mouth wide open in a deafening banshee wail. She was making the loudest music Lucky had ever heard. Angry, raging music with sounds like worlds ending, huge, violent, shattering sounds. Sounds quite topical. The rest of Bix's cabin was dedicated to fighting. There were mats and weights and charts, as well as a small but impressive collection of weapons. Also a tattered punch bag, which showed every sign of having been hit very hard and very often. Almost as an afterthought, there was a bed folded up against the wall, with some clothes strewn across it. Sound familiar? Bixer took up position on a mat and faced him, scowling. She was the same height as Lucky, but she felt dwarfed by her ferocity. He felt dwarfed by her ferocity, her focused stillness. She didn't even blink. She just watched him across the mat like a lioness watching her prey, and then she said something he couldn't hear. "What?" he asked. "I said, are you ready?" she yelled, over the ear-bleed din. And then she began to move. She moved in the most mesmerizing way. She flowed like a fish through water, like water itself. And Lucky stared at her in shock, recognizing the way her mother had moved. And Bixer hooked an arm round his throat and dragged him to the floor. "Wait!" he gasped as he hit the ground. "What's that you're doing?" Her fist stopped in midair, a millimetre from his nose. He gaped up at her as she pulled her fist away and released him. but she didn't answer his question. "Your turn," was all she said. The full horror of the situation hit him as he hauled himself up. She was about to smash my face in. She's not holding back. Whatever she's doing, it's deadly serious. If I don't find some way to get through this, she's going to kill me. Bixer took up position on the mat again and confronted him. Lucky looked away, shaking. "I said your turn," she repeated frostily. "What am I going to do?" On the vid screen, the actor singer reached the climax of her song and hurled herself into the crowd. He gave him an idea. "Okay, Thor, you want to fight? Let's see how you like this." "Yah!" he screamed as he hurled himself at her like a madman. He tackled her, threw his arms around her middle. The momentum knocked her off her balance, and he felt a moment of satisfaction. Until he realised that he wasn't in control. He was accelerating, sailing through the air too fast, and Bixer? Where was Bixer? Oh, she was coiled up beneath him, suspended in perfect balance and totally in control. She was bringing her hooves up into his belly. "No!" he screamed as she uncoiled her legs and flung him like a rocket at the wall. And it was the strangest thing. As he soared through the air, he thought he glimpsed the soles of her hooves. They didn't look like anything he expected, not like animal hooves, more like some kind of metal, flashing silver in his eyes. But it was just a flash, the briefest glimpse, and smash! He hit the far wall hard and slumped to the floor. The room spun around him. On the vid screen, the crowd was applauding the actor singing. The cheering echoed in his ears as he lay there groaning, gazing up at the battered old punch bag. Bixer turned off the vid screens and the applause stopped. She bounded across the cabin and stood over him, squinting down at his slumped form. Was she looking worried, or was he imagining it? "I didn't break you, did I?" she said a little stiffly. "I didn't think you'd be so bad." Despite his pain, Lucky found himself bristling. "Bad? Terrible. I've never seen anyone so terrible in fighting." "Yeah, well, I didn't ask for this. I didn't even want to be here. Your stupid father forced me to train with you." "He's not my father," snapped Bixer. Her needles flashed crimson and she looked so fierce for a moment that Lucky had to look away. But quickly her needles cooled. "Look, I'm not making fun of you," she said. "I'm just surprised. It's weird how bad you are. You don't know how to move properly or anything. You're so clumsy. It's like you don't even belong in that body." Lucky's anger ebbed away at her words. Because she was right. His whole life, that was exactly how he felt. "So what?" he said. "So have you always been this rubbish?" "I guess so," he sighed. "Anything typical, I'm terrible. Physical, I'm terrible. What about you? Isn't it weird how good you are? Have you always been this good at fighting?" She looked suspicious for a moment, and then a smile flashed across her face. It was the first time he'd seen her smile, and it was like seeing a comet in the night. "Yes," she said, "I was always good." "How did you learn?" "Taught myself," she shrugged. "Me and Frolix, we grew up in the human world. Frolix might look big and scary, but he's not much use in a real fight, and they always seem to happen, wherever he went. So I had to learn to defend myself." "That must have been hard." "At least I learned. Lots of acts I never did. You should see how hard it is for them." She paused and then jabbed the battered punch bag. "You don't know the astral martial arts, do you?" "The what?" "The way I was fighting just now. Astral martial arts." Lucky shook his head. "Of course not. Why would I? But I think my mother did." "Yeah, I saw her. She was good." "Where'd she learn?" "I wish I knew." He bit his lip. The more he found out about his mother, the less she seemed like the suburban mom he'd always known, with her baking trays and apron. "What is astral martial arts, anyway?" "Fighting like the stars," said Bixer. "They're the most powerful thing there is. So we want to be powerful. We have to be like them." She took up position on the mat again. "We have 12 styles of combat based on the 12 signs of the zodiac that were originally seen from Earth." "You know about Earth?" said Lucky, surprised. "Of course we do. That's where we started out from, too. We travel further than you groundlings. We evolved a little on the way, but we've all begun in the same planet Earth. That's why the 12 star systems of this galaxy are named after those constellations." "Do they really not teach you anything in those stupid human schools?" "Doesn't seem like it," Lucky had to admit. "Well, if you know the signs of the zodiac, that's the start. There's a different fighting style for each sign, from Aries, the ram, to Pisces, the fish." She began to move again, to move in that mesmerizing way, flowing like a fish through water. "Is that Pisces?" guessed Lucky. "See? You do know something. Now get up and help me train." "No," he protested. "I don't know. I don't even know my mother did until the Shadow Gods." His words tailed away. It was too painful to say out loud. He closed his eyes, the hole in his heart burning with the memory of her loss. And all this time, Bixer didn't say a word. She She was totally silent as the fire burned and burned in Lucky's heart. At last he opened his eyes again, and to his surprise she stuck out her hand and helped him to his feet. "Look," she sighed. "It's true that you're terrible, but I really need a training partner, and you're all I've got. You don't have to know anything, you just have to do what I tell you. And now I know how bad you are, I'll try not to break you. What do you say?" "Bixer, I hate fighting," Lucky replied, shifting uncomfortably on the mat. "It's my least favourite thing ever. Imagine the thing you hate most." "Okay, I get it. So here's the deal. You say you want to go to the war zone to find your dad, but you don't know the first thing about it, do you? You don't even know what's there. So if you help me with my training, you might just get some answers." Lucky's heart skipped a beat. "You'll help me?" She shrugged. "I might answer your questions if you help me with my training. Do we have a deal?" He took a deep breath, braced himself. "Okay," he said. "At last, we have a deal." Roman 9. The wolf threatens each one of us. The Astraeus of the hearth cannot protect us from it, for it shatters every home. I wonder how the training will go. Maybe you could start up a Zodiac. Have a look at the Zodiac, see what the 12 Astraeus might be like. Bye for now.